A Father's Love, Episode 23, The Culture Challenge. Dad was in the kitchen on a cool evening making supper. I've always wondered why Dad cooks so often. A lot of my friends talk about how their father could hardly cook. Many of my friends thought they were seeing the eighth wonder of the world when they saw for the first time Dad cooking. In the kitchen, Dad cut off the head of the fish and the tail. I noticed a large chunk of edible fish was cut along with the head. Dad, why cut off such a large chunk of edible fish along with the head? What do you mean? I pointed at the big chunk of edible fish cut from the head that Dad was going to throw away. That's something we can eat, but you're throwing away. Dad looked at the fish with a little frown and then looked at me. I've never seen him look so confused. It's just what I saw my dad do, and I've always cut it like that. Dad shrugged a bit as he seemed confused. Can I cut the edible part from the head? I asked Dad to get him calm. He shook his head in disagreement. I smiled. Come on, Dad. It's just a fish head. It won't destroy your entire meal. Okay. Sure, go ahead. Dad motioned to me. I cut off the edible part and put it with the rest of the edible part. Dad began to smile. That's interesting. In my whole entire life, I've never seen that part of the fish eaten. I'm going to ask an uncle about this practice. That's a great idea, Dad. I said as I punched him gently. Some days later, Dad entered the house laughing hysterically. I jumped up and hopped towards him, jumping around him, but he didn't seem to notice me. I stopped as I deliberately tried to let him see me. Eventually, he sat down and managed to look at me. What's the good news, Daddy? Did you win a new contract? Wow, that's so crazy. I can't believe I've held on to something so obnoxious without ever asking. I looked at Dad with so much concern. Remember our discussion in the kitchen about fish heads? Of course. You looked concerned that day, but you're smiling today. What's the secret behind the fish? I called my uncle today and asked him why my dad cut his fish like that. My uncle, without hesitation, said my grandmother cooked like that because she had a small frying pan. She cut off so many edible parts of the fish to enable the fish to fit in the frying pan. I burst out laughing uncontrollably along with some spit out of my mouth. I quickly covered my mouth while I tried to control my laugh. Dad wiped his face as he laughed uncontrollably. Later in the night, Dad stopped in my room. What do you think about the fish inside today? Dad asked me. It's good to challenge the norm by asking some simple questions. Dad nodded in agreement. Culture has a strong effect which can be used to change good and bad habits. No matter how good the culture is, it can always get better. Every advancement in human history has always been a shift of culture. Dad, I can understand your culture with the fish wasn't as damaging except wasting some delicious fish. Dad chuckled and sighed heavily. What about people living in an oppressive culture where it goes from generation to generation? Dad shook his head in pity. First of all, culture is very strong, so no matter how oppressive, people will still live with it. Once people are ready to be free, they usually get free even though it's not easy. That's where the issue is. How can people be ready? There was a story of a brother called Esau demanding a blessing from his father which had already been given to his brother. His father, Isaac, told him, "You will live by your sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you decide to break free, you will shake their yoke from your neck." When people are ready, they will know, and they will go to any extent to break free from the oppressive culture. Dad, can we pray for such people? Of course. Dear Lord, there are people living in an oppressive culture around the world. Please help them to see the light and give them the courage to come out of such an oppressive culture. Lord, will this be something too hard for you to do? Dad looked up.